My name is Zenobia Harris. I'm the CEO of the Chamber. So on behalf of myself, my staff, and the board of directors, we definitely like to welcome you to our October luncheon.
Right. So it is my pleasure to introduce Chief Ralph Rail Padilla. He has served with the Kent Police Department since 1997. He began his law enforcement career as a police officer with the Honolulu Police Department in 1992. Wasn't there a show about that?
Hawaii Five-0.
Yeah. Got people in the house. He subscribes to the servant leader philosophy and considers it his duty and honor to serve and protect the people of Kent. Previous to being appointed to the chief on May 8, 2018, Raphael has served as an assistant chief of police for the previous 5 years. During that time, he has held command of all 3 divisions of the department, spending significant time overseeing the operations of the Support Services Division, Investigations Division, and Patrol Divisions. This experience allowed him to gain a deeper understanding of all aspects of the Kent Police Department operations. Raphael is a graduate of the FBI National Academy, Northwest Law Enforcement Command College, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, Leadership in Police Organizations, and holds an executive level career level certification through the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission. And you're allowed
Long title.
Long titles. Let's welcome Chief Padilla.
All right, that was a lot. I gotta shorten that bio down. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I can still say good morning. So good morning to everyone. I want to say thank you to Zenobia and the staff for having me out. Since being appointed about 1.5 years ago, this is one of the things on my list of where we could probably improve as a police department in terms of getting better connected. I look out at the crowd and I say probably about half of this room are familiar faces and the other half are new, and so nice to meet you, which tells me there's opportunity for us to get deeper relationships, better relationships going on. So thanks for the opportunity. What I'm hoping is I'll touch on some things. I've got half an hour, so I'm going to be buzzing through. If you have questions at any time, hit me up. I'll be happy to answer them as we go, and if we don't get through it in the presentation, I'll have my contact information. You can catch me on the sidebar. We'll try to get to everybody's questions. So with that said, I think my bio is there. The only thing I would add to the bio is I'm married. I have 4 kids ranging from 24 all the way down to 15. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm more ready than my wife is, and we are a football family. One of my sons plays for PLU. We're avid college football. We got season tickets to the Huskies, and all I have to say for all you in your Seahawks gear, go Hawks. So good deal on that. All right, let's get into it. There's a lot to cover. So who are we? Our mission is a little different than you'll see a lot of missions in the industry. Our mission says we aggressively fight crime while serving with compassion. One statement. And they kind of seem at odds, but really that's the sophistication that our officers, the people that we hire, have to have. They have to be both warrior and guardian, protector, and caregiver, all at the same time. It's a very difficult job. I get a lot of heat from some about the word aggressive, and they want me to change it. Chief, aggressive, well, we're Kent, and you're Kent. And we feel we have an obligation to you to do everything we can to keep you safe. And we're not gonna do it passively, we're not gonna do it averagely, we're gonna do it aggressively. That doesn't mean we violate rights, it doesn't mean we don't do anything that isn't within the rules, but if you don't like aggressively, then maybe change it to relentlessly, because that's what we are when it comes to violent criminals, okay? And the compassion part, plain and simple, we care. We are an organization about people. In our ranks, if you want to be a Kent police officer, if you haven't demonstrated through your life prior to showing up at an interview for the job that you've given to the community, that you're service-oriented, that you have a true heart for people, you don't get in, plain and simple. And that's a standard question every time I go through an interview with new employees. So if you're not there, if you're not about people, sorry, you can't work for Kent PD. Okay? Our values, service, professionalism, integrity, pretty standard, right? Notice the service is first. And our vision, we strive to deliver the highest level of law enforcement service and to improve the quality of life. That second part is new. You don't hear that. In law enforcement, we're supposed to be these big tough guys. That's called fluffy, soft language. You don't see a lot of that in vision statements, but we have it because we think and we recognize that we have a responsibility to do more than just respond to 911 calls. Our job is to go out and make sure the quality of life for people in Kent is better, everybody. Now, sometimes that comes at the end of a result where we get someone into rehab and we get them through and get services for them, but our goal for everybody we encounter is to get them the quality of life up. So, what I like to say in our city is, it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, where you come from. If you're in Kent, you're our people, and we're here to protect and serve. So what's new with Kent? Well, you guys probably have been seeing it on TV. I know myself and Madam Mayor have been on TV more this last week than we probably care to. I know I don't. I've got a face for radio, so I know I don't like to be on TV. Yeah, the hair thing bugs me still too. But a big initiative came to fruition this week. We launched our body-worn camera after an extensive pilot and research, and the media keeps driving this to red light cameras. So let me just put that out there. Yes, we are paying for this through our red light cameras because we had to get creative to come due on a bigger priority, which is public trust and transparency for our community. Okay? You may not know this. The rest of the country, body cameras are old hat, not in Washington. In Washington, Kent is probably the 5th city in the entire state to get body-worn cameras. Think about that. We're not a small state, okay? And I'm pretty sure, show of hands, how many people want their officers to have body-worn cameras? Yeah, everywhere I go, it's pretty universally supported, everywhere. It doesn't matter what your perspective is. So with that said, Mayor Ralph, one of her top priorities, this was a mayor-led thing, was that we were going to make it happen. And so we did. We've got 105 cameras that rolled out this week, mainly on our patrol division, so anybody that wears a uniform for the most part. And we hope to be fully up with everybody here in the next coming years. It's not cheap. It's about $1.6 million a year to fund body-worn cameras, which is one of the major hurdles for most of the law enforcement agencies around. Number two, the laws regarding public disclosure are very restrictive and liability laden for us. So we have an obligation by law that if a request comes in for the video, we have to honor that request. We have to be timely, we have to be complete, and then on the other side of things, we have to be careful. There are privacy issues, there are special victims. Think of children, sex assault victims. We have to redact every frame of video before that gets released to anybody. And anyone in this room can walk into the police department or send an email and request whatever video you want. So think of that. 105 officers, 24/7, it's a lot of video. So a lot of our costs have come with hiring staff to cover that additional workload. So any questions on the body cameras? Yes?
How long does the video stay around? Like,
right now, if there's no incident, if it doesn't get tagged, I'm learning new terminology, if it doesn't get tagged by an officer related to a criminal incident or a case, then it'll stay in there for 90 days and then it will go. We think 90 days is a good enough time to figure out whether or not we need to retain the video. A great question.
Otherwise, how long does it stay around?
Once we keep it, it stays. So don't quote me, but after a case is adjudicated, somewhere around 7 years, we still hang on to it. So we follow the state retention guidelines on that, which are not locked in here right now. Good questions. So we've already had some really good confirmation that it was worth getting the system. I'll be straight up, we've had an incident where an officer ran a red light. Yes, it happens. He was on his way, taking someone to jail. The person in the back happened to be screaming and yelling at him at the time, a little distracting, and he rose to a red light. We were able to see that and address that right away. There's been a couple instances like that. We've also had some really egregious complaints come in. It's a pretty interesting response. We invited, it's about perceptions a lot of time, right? People have fears, they perceive things, and what they perceive and what actually comes out on the video isn't always the same thing. So we've been able to bring in community members, sit them down and say, hey, here's a video, let's talk about it. And watch them see that sometimes what you perceive does impact what you think actually happened. And so we were able to get to the truth, build some stakeholders that are very big fans of the Kent Police Department by having a conversation. And quite honestly, we've had complaints come in where we said, hey, you know there's video, right? Click, and we never hear from them again. So it's also helping in our courts, which is another big impact, another hurdle. So far, and I got to check the most recent number, any defense attorneys in the room? Defense attorneys are one of the groups that are not super fans of body-worn cameras. We've had 100% plea deals from all our cases that had video. So we're going to be seeing some cost savings in our courts. So the other thing that's going on is I've been working really hard, our hiring recruiting team has been working really hard to get our staffing caught up. We'll talk about whether or not we have enough staffing, and the answer is no. But the bigger challenge is we were running about 25-ish open, unfilled officer positions before I got in. That's a lot. For a 160-person force, that is a lot. And it was burning out our officers. We are a busy city. We are busier in terms of the law enforcement stuff than most anyone around in this region. And I'm not kidding, that includes Seattle. So we worked hard, we've got it down to about 5. Now I've got a couple of retirements, it's gonna go back up to 7. It moves, but we're keeping it under 10 and we're gonna get it down to 0. We're pushing really hard. As you know, it's not a real popular job if you look out there, right? It's hard to get people to come in, but we're working hard on that. So I'll get to your question just a sec. What that's done though is what I've been able to do is staff up our patrol division, which impacts you, your calls. We've been able to go from 2 K9 officers to 4. So those businesses that get the commercial burglary alarms in the middle of the night, I have doubled our capability to track for burglary suspects, and we're going to talk about burglaries. I've been able to bring our bike unit back up to 6, and we hope to be at 8 by the end of the year. One of the tough decisions we had to make was we moved our entire bike unit to go and do homeless outreach. So sergeant and 4. So the traditional bike officers that you would see around the businesses, which was their bread and butter, was to be down in the business core, those went away. And so we lost our presence, particularly in the downtown core. And when you don't see police officers in the downtown core, with all the other dynamics that are going on, it ends up being a place where people feel comfortable to come and do crimes. So we'll talk about that. We're in a reactive posture right now. But we've doubled up. You should be seeing bike officers more frequently, and that includes coming up in the real ugly weather. And hopefully you're starting to see them. We got them in parks, we got them in businesses. I believe in going back to some of the traditional law enforcement models where the officers are out there. It's a way for us to be out of police cars because you're on a bike. Get up, check on businesses, talk to people, check on our community members, some of our people in crisis. They're on point for that, and I want to build it more. So we've been able to do that, and I've been able to plus up 3 detectives. We'll talk about felony guidelines with King County here in a second, but we are on pace to be 60% more felony cases filed this year than last year, 60%. So that's a huge jump. So, sir, your question.
How many officers do you need in addition to what you have?
Great question. Our agency should be at a minimum right now at about 185. If we got to 185 officers, that would put us in the middle of all the other police departments of our comparable cities. We're not asking for the moon and stars. We just want to be right in the middle.
How many do you have now?
We have 161 authorized. We will be at 165 allotted for the next budget. And I want to also be really clear. It is not a lack of support from our council, and it's not a lack of support from the mayor's office at all. They are, quite honestly, they are pushing budget dollars to get more police officers than we probably can afford. So, okay.
Question.
Yes.
So Bellevue was able to get, I understand, to be fully staffed. How are they able to achieve that when everybody else is short?
Well, I'd be interested in what fully staffed is. What some agencies are doing.
They're fully staffed with their police.
Yeah, so what is fully staffed mean, like they're 2 down, 3 down, or they're over? So some agencies, and I don't know if Bellevue's this way, they hire ahead. So they always carry 2 or 3 positions over, because in law enforcement, attrition is pretty rapid with retirements, injuries, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's a good accomplishment. The other issue, though, is that with their growth, they've been in the 180s and 190s, so their growth has been up there for a while. we're trying to jump from 160 to the 180s. And that's a big deal. So at any given time, you've got officers out on injury leave, sick leave, long-term training for different certifications. So it's a big deal. Look, most agencies that I know right now are getting better with their hiring, but they're still, most of them have openings. So, all right, so let's talk some numbers real quick. Crime stats. So there's a 3-year review. Look across just kind of some of the top crimes, violent crime for this particular slide. If you look at that, we are down. It's still not great. I will say we are down about 23% in shootings. We're down 28% in homicides. And robberies are going the wrong way. We're probably going to be up a little bit, probably about 3% in robberies. And property crimes, commercial burglaries, probably one of our biggest deals. Probably impacts a lot of your businesses in here. I shouldn't probably even ask this question, but show of hands, how many of your businesses have been burglarized in the last year? Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah, it is a big, big deal. Okay, that is going better. We're down about 7%, but 7% of a really high number is still a really high number. Commercial burgs, that second one, residential burgs, is trending in the right direction. And vehicle thefts, that's the other big glaring, we have a lot of work to do area. We lead, unfortunately, we lead a lot of the country in our vehicle thefts per capita. There's a lot of things that drive that. Not to belabor it, but felony charging decisions, sentencing laws in our states, the opioid epidemic are all driving the issues with vehicles. Then you look at demographics, and the most popular cars that are stolen, a lot of those are in Kent. It's a lot of social economics. So if you're driving a mid-2000 Honda Civic, that's what's going on. So I hate to say it. But we're working hard on that. We've got a task force set up. We make a lot of arrests. The issue really isn't about the amount of arrests, it's just an overwhelming problem. And many of you may not know this, but in Washington State, state sentencing for vehicle theft is really out of whack. So they call it free crime. The bad guys will say it's free crime. So what happens is it's a point system. And so at a point where you max out on points, say, let's call it 10 points in King County. Let's say you've stolen 10 cars, you've got 10 points. At some point, you're going to go to jail. But you're going to go to prison, and it's going to be a maximum of 5 years. Which most people go, oh, you stole a car, 5 years, okay, that's kind of harsh, but we get it. The problem is, from the time that you max out on your points in King County to the time that you go to prison 2 years later, it does not matter how many more cars you steal, you can only do 5 years in prison. So if in the 2 years that you're waiting to go to prison, you steal another 100 cars, it does not matter. You're seeing why it's called free crime. So it's an issue. It's a real issue. Why stop? Why would you stop? Right? If that's how you're supporting your drug habit or your lifestyle, why would you stop stealing cars?
Why is it taking 2 years to get to prison?
The system's really backed up, and there's appeals and other procedures in the way, and so yeah, 18 months, 2 years, not uncommon.
Chief, is that a state law problem or a King County prosecution problem?
That is a state law problem. Thank you for the distinction. We used to have a model that was called swift and certain, where you went to jail for a shorter amount of time, but you went right away. In essence, the offender could identify with their crime, right? It was connected. At the time where you're 2 years after the fact, how many of you discipline your children 2 years after they do something wrong? Does that work out? See the problem, right? So, one of the things there. Questions on our numbers?
You mentioned 60% up on felony
Filings. So the cases that we refer to the King County Prosecutor's Office.
Is that because of escalation of felonies or
It's a combination of things. So more officers mean more arrests. Our arrest numbers are also up pretty significant, and our misdemeanor crimes are up pretty significant because more officers, more arrests. That's part of it. The other part of it is we've changed our stance a little bit. There are things called King County filing guidelines where basically the King County prosecutor says we're not going to charge felonies, and these are all the ones we're not going to charge anymore. It's not a law. You didn't vote on it. It's an administrative decision. And so when that happens, our city is stuck with saying, okay, there are community members that are victimized. What are we going to do with that? And the answer for us and for the mayor is we're going to make sure we do what we can for our community members. So a couple years ago, we started charging felonies into our misdemeanor court because it was the only way to get any accountability. Well, 2 years later and hundreds of thousands of dollars later, our jail is full on a regular basis because the King County prosecutor is not taking the felonies, which, by the way, state law requires. Felonies are at the expense of the county, not the cities. So the mayor and a group of mayors in South King and chiefs have been working to connect with Mr. Satterberg and get him to see what the issues are and maybe have him change some of those administrative rules, but that's an ongoing fight. Some of the bigger felonies that aren't getting charged are user-level drugs. If you have less than 2 grams of any type of drug, it's basically legal in King County. So think about that. Think about our opioid epidemic. Think about our population of people that are homeless or addicted. Think about the impacts of not being able to do anything about that at the drug deal. Nobody wants to throw people that are suffering from addictions in prison. That's not what we're saying. But what I am suggesting to you is that when I send an officer out to go deal with someone who's maybe stealing from a car or what have you, a lot of times the only way that we can get them into any services is if they get convicted for drug violations. The courts don't give resources to people who aren't convicted of drug. If you need services for your addiction, you're not going to get them if you don't ever go into the system. So it's this kind of a backwards way to look at it. So we're looking at pre-arrest stuff, we're looking at diversion programs, we're doing everything we can, but it's a serious problem. That's one of them. So, and then there's the chronic offenders. You guys have been watching. Anybody read through the systems failure report on Seattle? Well, that's Seattle. I will tell you that the twin brother system of Seattle is King County. It's the same process. Prolific criminal offenders, and they do not stay in jail at all. So
what can we do to motivate King County?
I like where your mind's at. Let me get to that slide. But on the way to serve it up, I appreciate that. Just like we talked about. All right. So how we're doing, I'm very proud of the fact that despite our staffing isn't up near the top or even in the middle, we do perform very well. Our statistics are better than most jurisdictions in the region. We suck at commercial burglaries and we suck at vehicle crimes. We're working on it, okay? We are working on it.
Thank you for acknowledging.
Major issues, homelessness, right? Homelessness, opioids, regional growth. On the homelessness issue, it's impacting all of you, I know. And we understand that the impact is that it creates an environment sometimes that's not as friendly or family welcoming as we'd like. It's a big deal. And in Kent, we have a very compassionate approach that comes with accountability once we can't get someone to take services. So like I said, I have an entire unit that all they do is go out and do homeless engagement. In 2018, we counted 202 homeless camps in the city. Our team cleaned out 175 camps. So on the small side of things, a small homeless camp would be in this room. Okay? On the big side, think several city blocks. They're huge and they're intricate. And we want to be compassionate, and there's some case law that restricts how we do business. It's not as easy as you're unlawfully on private property, you need to leave. That's not how that works. Okay? So 175 camps, and they keep reoccurring. What we see is we'll clean out a camp, a few weeks it'll be fine, and then another group will move in, or sometimes the same group will move in. So we go out, we team with different service providers, King County Mental Health, Catholic Community Services, Union Gospel Mission, and others, we take them out in the field with our officers and we actually do outreach and say, hey, how can we get you in housing? How can we get you treatment for your addictions? And we do it over and over again. It's not unusual to go and contact someone 5, 10 times before they'll finally say, okay, I'm ready for some help. And then a good percentage of them never take that help. So when we get to a point where we can't do any more with the person, that's where the accountability comes in. And we will leverage the law to get people to move on. And we try not to put them in our jails. Trust me, I don't want them in my jail. But we are going to do what we can, because it just can't, we can't just be, I'm just going to say it, we can't just be Seattle. Okay, we're Kent. So we do everything we can, and it's a huge deal. On the opioid epidemic, we're working City of Kent through the mayor and the city prosecutor or city attorney. We're part of that massive lawsuit on the opioids. We're working on that. Working with our service providers on that. I have detectives on 3 narcotics task forces in the region, which is probably 3 times more than any other police department around us, because it's a big deal. So we made that commitment.
There was just a case in, I think it was Bellevue, where the 2 16-year-old kids died from the street level fentanyl narcotics. Do you know if any, I mean, obviously you probably experienced quite a bit more in the Kent area of that same sort of thing.
It's on the rise. Fentanyl is very scary, because the mortality rate for fentanyl users is probably higher than any other drug. So it's here. Just off the top of my head, I want to say we've had maybe 3 fentanyl deaths in Kent. So that's just, I don't have hard numbers. That's just going off what I can recall.
Are the cities working together? I mean, because obviously there's been, there's a big influx of it. The article was just talking about how, you know, they're trying to see if the cases are related, and there was a big arrest up there for those pills that had the fentanyl in them.
Right.
So do you guys work with the other cities in regards to that?
Yes, so those task forces I talked about, they're multi-agency represented, and we partner with the Fed. So DEA is involved. And I sit on a board called HIDA, High Intensity Drug Trafficking. It's a national group that comes against, it's a federal grant, and we oversee dispersing money to the task forces so they can operate and do narcotics intervention. But yes, fentanyl is a big deal right now. So, yes, ma'am.
Would a drug court, like our DUI court, be helpful in managing some of those, or is that?
They are. Do you hear what the question? Would DUI court or drug court be helpful? Absolutely. We believe in restorative justice. We know that it does make an impact, positive impact. And Kent has a very, well, award-winning DUI court right now, which is awesome. What has to happen for someone to get into drug court?
Be convicted of a drug offense.
They have to be convicted of a drug offense. And when they get in there, that really is, the numbers are pretty clear. If you look at the program out of, I believe it's Massachusetts, they're seeing like an 83% success rate with mandatory treatment. Voluntary treatment isn't working. It hasn't worked in decades. And regional growth, we've exploded in the area, and we're having a hard time keeping up. We don't have the staffing, the resources and whatnot. The city is struggling right now to meet the demands of the explosion in growth. So it's a challenge all the way around. Talked about that a little bit. So I wanted to touch on this, and it's why I was really excited to be able to come talk to you this afternoon, I think. A top priority for the city, the mayor has made it clear, all of her directors and all our department heads know, we need to do everything we can to get sustainable economic vitality in this city, okay? Because if we don't, all these wonderful services that we need to provide to our community, there's no money for them. There just isn't. So if our businesses aren't thriving, then our city isn't thriving. And I just wanted to say, we get it. And you know, 28 years ago when I was doing push-ups at the police academy, I never imagined I'd be coming and talking about the police officer's role in economic vitality of the city. But I want you to know my officers know. My officers understand that when we don't take care of your businesses to the degree that we should be, that we all suffer in that. They get the connection. So part of what I want you to know is make sure you're in touch with us. We'll talk about getting connected, okay? So challenges. I'm probably going to get in a little trouble here. So King County Criminal Justice System, and there was a question about state law and the prosecutor's office. We are at odds with the prosecutor's office right now in the way they're charging. We talked about that a little bit. The issue is, and you may not know this, so we just got a report on what's called daily average population in King County jails. Okay, it goes back to, was it 2004, Mayor? So going back to 2004, and we are about 600 inmates lower per day in King County than we were 14, 15 years ago. And the juvenile inmate population is down to probably about a fifth of what it used to be, which really sounds like a great thing, and I agree, in theory. But the zero incarceration mentality and ideology in King County is not working. The argument is that, particularly for the youth, is that once they get in the system, statistics show that they never get out. And that may be true. And what I get when I go to these conversations, what's told to me is, hey, Chief, you can't put them in juvenile detention because it's a gladiator school. And my response to them is, then fix your gladiator school, because there has to be a balance of services and programs and accountability. They've gone totally offender focused, and I'm worried for the victims of crime in our cities. Everything, every dollar that they can spend is on behalf of the offender, which sounds really good until you realize that it doesn't solve the crime issues. Okay, so it's a balance thing. It really is, and we're out of balance. We talked about felonies. They're not prosecuting for a lot of thefts. They're not prosecuting. How many people here have been victim of identity theft? Yeah, the benchmark for us to prosecute someone for identity theft is off the charts. It's undoable. Clearly, they want us to charge in misdemeanor courts. That's really the deal. So part of our push is to say, if you get a felony case from our detectives, which should be prosecuted, it's got probable cause, then if you don't file it as a felony, then file it as a misdemeanor in district court. Because I will tell you, each one of those cases is probably about $7,000 to $10,000 to the taxpayers in Kent when they kick it back to us. And again, we're not going to let our victims go without some type of justice. Let's see. What was that? Talked about that. Staffing, I can't hit this enough. I know I sound like a whiny baby, but it's true. It's true, okay? There's no doubt. I'd be happy to show you what we have. I had some East Coast officers come. They were doing an assessment of our training. They wanted to see how we operated. It was part of a national team. And they all got here, and they all had one common thing they said. They said, you guys are nuts. We can't believe you roll the way you roll. If we were Seattle, we would have about 320 officers right now, just so you know. So we are about one half per cap, half the allotted officers of Seattle right now. So they were like, we can't believe you guys ride around in solo cars. We can't believe you, but you know what? We hire good people. And that's how we're making it work. So, but the bigger issue, and what I wanted to draw your attention to today, is there are things that we want to be doing for all of you, and we're not. Okay? I desperately, desperately want to have a crisis response team. So the motto is you take a mental health crisis response person trained professionally, you take caseworkers, you embed them with our officers who are trained in de-escalation and crisis intervention, and they respond in the field. How many of you have driven by someone with mental health issues and crisis just sitting out on the street anytime recently? Yeah, look, every hand in the room. Right now, how we deal with that is if an officer, a patrol officer, goes there by themselves to try and intervene. Not very successful. Our officers don't have direct access to the services and aren't as skilled in those type of issues. We need a team. I need a team. I want a team really bad. I don't have the funding for that. I want a crime reduction unit, a team where if things start happening, say at Birch Creek Park, where all of a sudden we have 3 shootings in a month, I have to pull resources off a different part of the city right now to go and cover that. I should have a dedicated team that's all they do. They go to the problem areas in the city and they deal with them, and they deal with them effectively. Looking for that. Park patrols. We should have officers that during the warmer months, you should feel very safe and comfortable in our parks, because you know why? Every hour or so, a couple of bike officers roll by and they're taking care of issues. There's just so many needs. And then getting us up to about 185 on top of that. I want to double our work crews. The work crews at the jail clean up graffiti and litter and help beautify our city, right? So part of their sentence, if they want to reduce sentences, they come and basically do community service. Right now, I don't have the capacity. I have one team, and they're booked. They're like months booked right now. So I'd like to double that. I'd like to get advocates out, crime victim advocates, sex trafficking advocates, domestic violence advocates. There are so many needs. There are so many things we're not doing right now that we feel we should be doing for you. So that's what we're looking. Okay. Sir.
To get to the 185 of allocation of resources, I mean, the tax failed, and I know that. But if you spend a lot of money on administration or parks or the fire department, then you get shorted. And crime is rising a lot faster than fires are burning down houses. So you should get the people, not us the department.
Okay. He said that. I didn't say that. We love our firefighters. But your point is valid. I want to make it clear. First thing, fire department, it's not the city. Everybody say that with me. Firefighter's not the city.
Yeah, but they're paying for it.
School district is not the city. That's the other one we get in trouble with as well. And I will tell you that, not just because my boss is here, there is no, I mean, come take a look at the books if you want. The revenues are not there. Our expenditures are significantly outpacing revenues. And that I can look anyone in the eye and tell you that's the deal. So priorities may be something to have a discussion on, but I will tell you, even if you said we're going to put everything we have into the police department, it's still not where it needs to be. And we need to have good parks. We need to have good roads and clean water, and there's so many needs, right?
I know, but if businesses keep moving to Farmington because it's not safe here, then you have even less revenue.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Any other questions on that? Yes.
You may not be able to address it now, given the time, but what can we do as citizens?
Okay, it's been asked twice now, so I'm just going to go there. All right. So in terms of the King County Criminal Justice, I'd ask that you stay informed and be engaged. I'm actually pretty thrilled to see the Seattle Business Group. I've seen them on TV on a regular basis. That report of systems failure #2, they were putting that out there. They are making sure that the business community's perspective on this is being heard and people can't ignore them. A lot of times, only one side of the issue gets discussed. And it's the service side, which is great. But you are all running businesses, right? And there's a balance to that. The mayor and I have met with 4 or 5 business groups now, and it's the same thing. We are losing money because of what's going on in our city. We're all about compassion and service, but please, can you help us? People don't want to come here. They don't want to spend their money here. So be aware, and I would say be active. Make sure you're voting. Make sure you're looking at who's getting voted. I can't tell you the last time a prosecutor has been opposed in King County. I can't tell you the last time a judge in Superior Court in King County has run with any competition. They get elected and re-elected, and they run unopposed, and they don't have to come to a chamber meeting and explain why the numbers aren't good and things aren't working well. So there's a lot of anonymity to that, and so I suggest you make sure you're being heard. Mike.
Chief, there was this pretty significant plea bargain yesterday in Seattle. Apologies if I'm possibly bring up a painful subject, but the plea deal yesterday pled down to a juvenile for murder charge. Did the city have, the prosecutor attorney and yourself had a conversation with Dan?
You're talking about Mr. Emilio Garcia? So yes, and we got it once the decision's made, which is better than some of the circumstances. So what Mike's pointing out is a lot of these charging decisions get made, and then we're told about them. We've asked several times that we want to have a conversation. We've asked several times that they need to reconsider public safety. So Emilio Garcia was the youth that was involved in the shooting that led to the pursuit that ended up with my officer getting killed, okay? So he was charged with murder too. When you commit a felony shooting and you cause the death of another, that's called, it's technically murder one, but they charge murder two. The plea deal was they charged him as a juvenile, which means he'll be out of detention by age 21, okay? And in that circumstance, not super happy with the sentence, but I'll be honest, I don't want Emilio's life thrown away either. Okay, I don't think it should be a death sentence because he's so young. But there's gotta be some accountability also, right? It's gotta be a balance. The only saving grace on that, and they did contact us on that and let us know, they talked to the families beforehand and they were okay to live with it, they weren't happy. And they did send me and the mayor a letter. And so, in one hand, it's beneficial because here's what happens. If we go to trial, there's a risk that we could lose. King County jury could say, you know, there's that risk, there always is. The other part is that means all of my officers that already devastated with that incident have to go back and now they go on the stand. And the way that the defense attorney will go about their case will be to attack the officers and their decision making. So there's a silver lining in this, Mike, in that my people don't have to go through that. So, Sally.
I'd just like to invite everyone tonight, every Thursday night at the Kentland Church. Lewis Place serves them. It's been doing it for many years. And if you have a business or you don't, this is a great time to come down and meet that community. And to also thank the Kent Police because they have been there, they support, I know what you're saying, compassion. So please come down, we start, I'll say number 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock we serve, and by 6 o'clock we serve. So that's my part.
So, anybody here work with Mike Painter, former Deputy Chief of Police? Mike, a couple? Okay, Mike had some really great sayings, and one of his sayings was, let's throw the dead cat on the table. Because we used to keep it under the table, apparently. I'm not really sure we did that. So let's throw the dead cat on the table. Proposition A. Failed, failed. And I look at that as an opportunity. I don't know that we made our case. And I'm gonna work, the mayor's gonna work, we're gonna make our case. And so the things that I say we wanna do for you, we're not kidding. We are your police department, okay? And so you can expect next year there will be an ask and there will be some ballot initiative that will be in support of public safety. And I can't campaign, I gotta be very careful here, but I want you to be informed because I think if you're informed and you have the information, that's gonna do very well for us. Because I will tell you, I believe the facts are on our side. This isn't a motive, I need more people because I need more people. It's a reality, okay? So that's coming. It's been asked a couple times, how can you help? It's coming next year, so we'll be looking. I know there's a lot of asks, and I know there's tax fatigue, and I get it. I pay taxes too, but this is a Kent-specific thing that will have direct impact on all of you. So, yes.
I'm gonna ask another question.
Sure, no problem.
So how is it that you're going about trying to find those people to fill those positions? I mean, there's been posters in the past of others, and I feel like in the past there was a lot of rules that were a lot stricter, like have you ever been around pot smoke? If you had, you couldn't be a police officer. So are some of those things being revisited as far as being able to hire them?
And yes, and the answer is they have been quite a ways ago. Years ago we moved. I mean, it used to be if you used drugs ever, you could never get in. And that's moved, right? Because then we never hire anybody. You know, marijuana's not within the last year. You know, we've moved. Well, and we've adapted. I mean, look at my facial hair. I'm somewhat non-traditional, although traditional in other ways. We try to be more friendly, more comfortable. The biggest change that we've done and where we think we're making significant ground is that the way our people talk about our organization. Our biggest recruiters have been, not for a while, but are now, our own people. When officers from other jurisdictions want to find a place to work, the first thing they do is they call the other officers and say, hey, what's it like? And I am very proud, our culture has come back around. People love working in our police department. Now, we're gonna have our ups and downs, don't get me wrong, I probably just jinxed it. But we have Seattle officers who are taking $15,000 pay cuts coming to work for us. Why? Because they want to work for a place that still does the job, where they can still be police officers and protect the community, and that they have an organization that supports them and takes care of them. That's why. So our biggest thing right now, and the reason we're closing the gap, we've done some streamlining of our processes. We're faster than anybody, by the way. We get to the best candidates first, and it takes a lot of work. But the other part is our culture has changed. People want to come here.
Back to the cameras. You made it sound like I would think that the officers want them,
Oh.
because it would seem to me that yes, there's a layer of protection, but we're all not perfect, right?
Oh.
So like when they, I don't think it would be great to be caught going a red light, right? Also, they're in high stress situations, so people can second guess and be, Monday morning the quarterback, right?
Right.
So were they embracing of that, or?
Absolutely.
Because I would think it would hinder one's efficiency out there if one is thinking, I'm constantly being paid.
Absolutely. So if you guys recall, when Seattle was trying to get their cameras going, the mayor had to come out and do an executive order and force them to do it, which ended up going to court and all of that. And I will tell you, it wasn't because the Seattle officers didn't want it. What they wanted was their due process to talk about policy and impact, because they're a union. And the law says if you change your working condition in a union, you have to negotiate that. And that was taken too long, so an executive order came out, and ultimately they got to where they needed to be. We pay close attention to that. We work really close with our unions. Our officers want this and wanted it bad. We did the 6-month pilot, 11 officers carried them. I asked them, I said, hey, not because I'm the chief, tell me the truth. And some of them would tell me the truth regardless. I said, what would happen if we took your cameras away? And they said, no way, don't take this. They didn't care. This is after negotiations, that their union bosses would be happy with them. And they actually said that. They didn't care if they got paid, they didn't want to lose their cameras. They understand that it's an officer safety risk. There's lots of studies. People behave better when they know they're on camera, okay? And statistically, complaints go down big time, so I'm looking forward to seeing those numbers, and our use of forces go down big time. And injuries to both offenders and officers go down. So it's huge. Yeah, they want it. So we brought our union in from the beginning. They helped us frame the policies that we're using to deploy them. So they're in. Our union president was actually on Cairo, I think, talking about how much they wanted this. Great question, though. Thank you. Any other good questions? Zenobia, how am I doing on time?
You're good, you're good.
Okay.
Couple more questions.
Sir.
Why don't all the police departments in King County get together and go after King County for not doing the job that the state says they have to do?
The mayors are in conversations about that right now. They're working it. So it's
The American way to sue somebody, right?
yeah. Well, I don't know if we have grounds for suit, but we're looking at everything.
If it's a state law that they have to take felons, they have to take
Yeah,
felons.
I'm with you. Other good questions? Something I didn't cover. I went through a lot really quick. Maybe look at the slides here. We talked about that. There you go. Here's my contact information. I'm not hard to find. Please call me, email me. Yes, ma'am.
I have one last question. You mentioned domestic violence. I'm wondering how prevalent, do you get a lot of calls on that? Where does that fit in the scope of what you do?
Unfortunately, domestic violence continues to be a major issue for us. And the recent numbers I saw is that nationwide domestic violence is on the rise. So we're looking at that. We've updated some of our training and some of our procedures for that. One of the reasons you don't see it come across in a lot of statistical analysis is that it's very difficult for law enforcement to impact that in a proactive way, right? These are in homes. I mean, we can educate, we can talk, but really, we respond to it after the fact most times and connect them with Dawn and other places to get them help. But yeah, it is trending up. I want to say somewhere in the ballpark of 7%. So, I saw another hand. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I wanted to commend you guys for getting the street racers off of East Valley and 180th. Man alive, it was troublesome because people would want to come into our businesses. they couldn't,
Right.
but thank you.
We're working. They'll be back when the weather
Oh,
gets
I'm
better
sure,
again.
they're up on the hill.
I've been chasing them all my 23 years here in Kent.
Right,
So,
but East Valley,
so
great.
when we talked about how you can help, we're looking at trying to get support for legislation that's going to make it harder to do street racing. We looked at muffler noise technology, and we were this close to being able to pull off a pilot. It didn't get fully funded, and there's some challenges with the way the laws are, so we're looking at that again. We're also looking at the potential of automated enforcement. We have the ability right now, there's technology and vendors out there that can put up speed cameras that only go off during certain times of the day. We can control when they start, when they end. And so if you're on one of these major raceways that happens at 1 o'clock in the morning and you're speeding, now the cameras are on, you're gonna get a ticket. So there's lots of ideas out there. We've gone to barricading. I put officers on overtime. We barricade streets. Not an efficient way to use law enforcement at all. But we have to do something, so we've been doing it. Great question. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Does the county council and the exec have much influence over the prosecutor? I know he's elected separately, so influence the council there.
Where their influence is on their policy decisions and posture towards dealing with prolific criminal offenders. And so they authorize funding for the King County prosecutors. And I want to speak for the prosecutors, because the actual line level prosecutors do a phenomenal job. The question is, are they being allowed to do their job, and do they have enough resources? I would submit that they're not. But I would ask anyone in this room if they've seen Mr. Satterberg come out one time and say he needs more money for prosecution. Because we're waiting for him to say it, and he's not. So it makes you wonder, if you're not asking for more help and you're doing less, what's generating that? And so I don't think it's just it's a matter of resources. I think there's an ideology that's being put into play here, and it seems to be countywide. So he doesn't answer to them, but they could help him if he asked for the help. Anything else? Oh, that was easy. I wore my vest and everything. All right.
Taser demonstration now.
Yeah, okay. Who's Kevin? Kevin? Oh, okay. That's the one? That's
There you
it?
go.
Okay.
There's lots of Kevin.
Okay. All right. If there's no questions, I'm going to hang out for a little bit, but I really appreciate your time. Please let us know what we can do for you.